Hello. I haven't done a live in so long, so here we are. And I often feel really pulled to come and do a live or just share something when I have been working with people over the course of the last few weeks or months, and the same themes are coming up over and over again. It's always this signal to me of this is a through line, this is a thread that a lot of people are experiencing and that I want to share. So what I want to share today and what I've been thinking about and working with a lot of people on is how to get out of the cycle of all or nothing healing, or all or nothing thinking, to move into healing. How to get out of the cycle of all or nothing thinking. So tell me if this sounds familiar and let me know in the comments or in the chat if you've ever experienced this. So maybe you get a new diagnosis of something. Maybe you get some lab work back. More often than not, I find it's like maybe you're feeling symptoms in your body, or you're getting signals from your body that something's out of balance. Maybe you've gone on a vacation and you did things a little differently than normally would, ate a little differently, I don't know, and you're feeling kind of like puffy, or it just is, whatever these things are that trigger you to feel like, I want to make a change. I need to make a change. That's kind of the first step. So from there, you decide to use this motivation that you've gotten from some of these different pieces to either jump into a protocol or like a diet plan. I often see people jump into Whole30. It's like a really common one when we're feeling this and we don't quite know exactly where to go. There's nothing against that. It can be a really good tool. This is what I commonly see. You go all in on this plan, or like an exercise routine where you're going to push yourself and you're going to, you have this whole plan and this whole idea and this whole motivation. It kind of has the same energy of like a New Year's resolution almost, but, or like, a new protocol that's going to really help you to get out of the discomfort that you're feeling, or, support your body depending on what's going on. So you feel good for a little bit, but then life starts to happen, because some of these plans that we can jump into can feel, maybe they can feel restrictive. Sometimes they can feel like they're not completely tailored to us. So we start to feel like life happens, like you're traveling or social things come up, and it all starts to feel restrictive. And then your motivation starts to wane a little bit, and you feel like you've then fallen off. You've fallen off the wagon, and you find yourself going back to a place where there's no restrictions or there's no rules, just to feel some relief from the strictness of what you were doing before. Let me know if you've ever had that feeling. I have had that feeling, and I've worked with so many people who kind of get into that place where we're either on path one, we're kind of going through, this more strict, like set routine and program, and, this is what we want to be, this is what we're going to be doing, and this is our plan. And then path two is where we might find ourselves when we feel like we've fallen off because we're like, that was way too restrictive. That didn't feel good. It wasn't sustainable. And my motivation waned, where we just feel like, screw it, I'm going to do whatever I want to do. So you've felt that before too. And then what happens in there, it starts to feel like a relief a little bit, right? Because we're like, oh, I don't have to think so much about all my choices. I don't have to put so much energy and effort into this plan. I don't have to like constantly say no to things, or, whatever it is. It feels like a relief for a little bit. But then you start to get signals from your body that you aren't feeling well, and you start to feel like you need to make a change. And then the cycle begins again. So do you see, it's like this cyclical kind of thing, and we can get ourselves in sort of this all or nothing thinking. And I often have people say to me, like, I'm an all or nothing person. I'm a black or white person. And when it comes to health, this is how it kind of can translate a little bit. Like, I'm either all in or I'm totally off. And then we kind of get in that push and pull and that back and forth. And that can be really exhausting. And we can also start to be really, really hard on ourselves when we get stuck in that cycle where we think, what's wrong with me? Why can't I stick to something? Why don't I have the motivation? It looks like all these other people on the internet or around me have the motivation, or why do I keep finding myself like this? And whenever we're in a cycle, I love cycles because I get really curious about them and what they're doing and why we're in that cycle, and then how we can make ourselves bust up and out of that cycle to get to a new place, to get beyond that. So when we're stuck in this cycle of all or nothing type thinking, the good news is that there truly, truly, truly is another way to go about this. And I call it the third path. So if we're thinking of that, the first path and the second path, like I talked about, and we're kind of getting stuck in between those, this third path is really that place where we are finding a new way, finding a way that doesn't get us stuck in a cycle that doesn't feel good, and that ultimately starts to make us feel not only poorly in our body, but just poorly about ourselves, and like we're constantly stuck in between things. So the good news is, and like the first way of thinking about this is that there is another way, and it's the path that we have to carve out. It's not the path that feels easy when we have this black or white thinking. I mean, sometimes the all or nothing can feel really easy because it's like, okay, easy, I'm on a plan, I don't have to think about anything, that's great. Or easy, I really don't have to think about anything and there's no rules and no restrictions and here I go. This middle path is one that we have to almost carve out new neural networks for, and we have to strengthen muscles for, because it's not one that we often walk down. And so I find that this is really the work that I'm doing with people, is carving out and walking down this third path, because really at the end of the day, we're all seeking out balance, we're all seeking harmony and just ease. And I think most of us, we don't want to actually think so much about our health all the time, every day. Like that's often a goal, is I'm thinking so much about it, whether that's thinking about what you're doing, but also also thinking about what you're not doing. That can take a lot of brain space all the time. And I think sometimes we don't realize how much that's running in the background. Either being on path one and thinking, oh, I just wish I was more social, or I wish I could say yes to this, or this, is this even really working? Or when we're on the other path where we're not doing anything, oh, how did I get myself here? Why do I not have anything in place to support myself? Like, what's wrong with me here? And that can be just mentally really tiring and really exhausting. And so walking down, this third path, although at first it feels hard to sometimes carve out these neural networks, ultimately it leads us to a place where we're not bouncing back and forth. We're really actually tuning into our body and what it needs on a daily basis. Even if we're having to use like a machete to carve down this path and to get down it, that's the work. That's the work for all of us, so that it ultimately leads us to a place where we feel like we're not bouncing around, like we feel ease, like we feel calm, like we feel like we know what our body needs in any given moment. And then in order to be healthy, we actually just have to course correct like this, as opposed to, oh my gosh, I have to go and do this whole extreme 30-day plan. Like those things become almost a thing of the past. They can become tools that we use really intentionally, but on a day-to-day basis, we learn how to course correct, and we take away a lot of this noise that's going on in our brain. So the first step in all of this is really just acknowledging that there is a third path, and seeing that, because sometimes when we're stuck in this cycle of all or nothing thinking, we can't even imagine that there is a third path or another way. And thanks, Lori, your teaching on this is one of the most impactful lessons for my healing journeys. Totally. I'm so happy to hear that. And it's something that keeps coming up over and over and over again, and I think is a really, really key thing that gets missed, that we miss. And so the first thing is just acknowledging that there is a third path. There is a way that instead of feeling all or nothing, that we really can live in this more gray area, that we can find a place where we feel more ease, and we also feel like we're not as hard on ourselves. I think the second piece of this is really the phrase that comes to mind all the time, or that I love to use when we're walking down the third path, is forgive yourself. Forgive yourself, forgive yourself, forgive yourself, because we can get really stuck in our head about what we should be doing. I should be eating this. I shouldn't be feeling this way. I really shouldn't have had that last night that made me not sleep well. Those pieces. And when we're walking this third path, we have to really, really learn how to learn what our body needs and listen to it, which I'm going to talk about next, but also forgive ourselves as we're walking on this path, as we're learning, as we're veering off and coming back on. I use the phrase forgive myself. I forgive myself all the time. I'm like, let me think, okay, it was my birthday a couple days ago, and I ate a lot of the gluten-free treats that were super, super sugary, and I really didn't feel good. It really hurt my stomach, and I had this acidic feeling in my stomach. And then the next day I was like, I'm not going to eat another one of these. And then I had one because it looked so good and they were there and they're gluten-free and I could eat them. And then again, my stomach hurt really, really bad. And I started just mentally beating myself up a little of oh, why are you eating this? And it hurts your stomach and you're trying so hard to heal your body in other ways. And why did you do that? And I just had to put my hand on my heart and just say, oh, forgive myself. I forgive myself. Just forgive yourself. And then it can just dissipate. The energy of forgiveness is one of the most healing energies that we have access to. And it can just dissipate all of those things of should, just I forgive myself. The third piece, when we're walking down the third path, there's a lot of threes right now, is really just learning what your body needs. When we are working with this all or nothing thinking, say we're jumping into an exercise plan that is really maybe high intensity, and maybe it is in theory good for the body and really healthy, and of course exercise is really beneficial, all these things, but for your body at this moment in time, maybe you're working to heal some adrenal HPA axis issues or hormone imbalance, or maybe your body is dealing with a lot of underlying inflammation due to autoimmunity going on. And if you jump into a really intense exercise program, it's actually going to make you feel worse. And so maybe after that program, you start to feel actually I feel pretty lethargic after I work out. I don't have a lot of energy. It takes me a while to recover from this. Those are signals that you can give to yourself and your brain. Hey, what if we just took it down a few notches? So when we're stuck in the all or nothing cycle, it might think, well, this isn't working. Let me just throw it out completely and do nothing. When we're walking the third path, it is getting that feedback from the experience and from your body and saying, okay, well, what does this mean in terms of how I can modify this for myself? Does it mean that I just need to do less, only 30 minutes instead of an hour? Or for me, sometimes it's 10 minutes instead of an hour. Does it mean that I don't do this 5 days a week? Maybe I do this 1 day a week, right? And so that's where our ego starts to come in, and it can say, yeah, but I should be doing that, but I'm supposed to be doing that. When we're walking the third path and we're getting out of the cycle of all or nothing thinking, we have to tune into what our body really needs and start to strengthen the muscle of honoring that and tuning into that. And this is, again, where the forgiving yourself comes into play as well, of just being a little more gentle with yourself and saying that that's okay. An example with, food or diet plans might be, okay, in theory, a really restrictive diet plan could be a supportive thing if you're dealing with autoimmunity or food sensitivities or, hormone imbalance or things like that. But when you do it, if it stresses you out wildly, and it feels really, really restrictive, and every day you're feeling, you don't know what to eat, you're just feeling kind of you're floundering a little bit, or it's too much. Can we, instead of saying, well, I should push through this, can we say, is there a way that we could tailor it slightly to you and where you're at this moment in time, where it might be, restricting or, eliminating one thing at a time and really putting time and attention to that to see how that feels in your body. Could it actually be that we need to focus on blood sugar balance and nutrient density and getting in good foods first? And what your body's signaling, it's not quite ready for that yet. Like, there's a lot of nuances with it, and that's what I work with clients on, is really understanding those pieces and figuring out, instead of a one-size-fits-all approach that we need to power through, how can we take the information that your body's giving us and use that to create a plan where we walk down this third path that's unique to you. Because when we can get out of the all or nothing, it's so much easier to course correct, and it's so much easier to have a plan that feels sustainable for the long term, because ultimately healing's a long game. And when we're in this like all or nothing cycle, sometimes it keeps like halting us and starting us and halting us and starting us. And when we can find this middle ground or get out of this, we have stamina, we can sustain, because it fits for where we're at in our life right now. It fits for what we can handle. I often ask people the question, what do you have capacity for right now? Do you have space for that? Does that fit in your life right now? Sometimes our temptation is to say, yes, it does. That's what I'm supposed to do. But when we actually really work together and try and figure out what a sustainable plan of healing is, we might find the answer is, no, I don't have space for that. No, I don't have capacity for that. And that's really good information, and that's okay. So I wanted to just address this and bring some light to it and share some of those pieces that we can think about when we're walking down this third path. And I hope that is helpful. Let me know in the comments too, or send me a message if you're in this space of all or nothing, or you're kind of feeling stuck in this cycle, because there's some really cool things we can do to kind of bust out of it. And that's the work I really love doing with people. So just know that it is possible. There is a third way, and we can all support each other in finding that, because it leads to a lot more self-compassion. It leads to better results, honestly, long-term results, and it allows us to live a life where we are healing and supporting our body, but also enjoying it and loving ourselves, loving others, experiencing life still, and not feeling like we're just stuck in these boxes or these cycles. So I hope that is helpful, and I'm here if you have any more questions about it.